Conversation with the candidate continues right now.
Welcome back to Conversation with the Candidate and our candidate this morning, Russell Prescott, the Republican nominee for Congress in the 1st Congressional District. We're going to bring in our live town hall audience now of New Hampshire voters who have great questions. I'm going to jump in here and there with some follow-ups and also some viewer questions, but let's get things started right now with Madison Heresy.
Good morning. My question is, what will you do to improve the healthcare system along with affordable health insurance?
My goodness, it talks about what we talk about at our business all the time. Every year in October, we sit down with our insurance agent and say, all right, what options do we have? And really, it's restricted within the state lines. I believe that if we had more opportunity to purchase health insurance across the whole country, you would have a huge base of people that would be in insurance businesses portfolio, and therefore reduce the amount of effect of an individual having a catastrophic health problem across many, many lives. And that would be one of the main things that I would like to get done in Washington, D.C., to work on that. It has not subsided in terms of the increase of cost of insurance here in New Hampshire. Usually it is double digit for my employees. And my father came home from work one day when I was probably in high school, and it was in the 70s. And he came home with an excitement on his face, and he said, I just purchased health insurance for all of my employees who needed it and who wanted it. And that's what I've kept up since 1970s, when my dad first did it, to today. We have provided 100% health care insurance premiums paid by the company to make sure that anybody who wants it has it. And that's important. We need to continue to do that. And what it takes is ingenuity and problem solving in terms of being a business owner to make sure you have a good product to sell and be able to have the profits to be able to support your employees. That's number one in terms of a business. If somebody walks into a company and they see that an employee is not having their needs taken care of, such as insurance, health insurance, they see that. And so my company has grown just because you take the effort to put people first, especially those that are under your care as an employer.
Thank you.
That's how I do it.
One quick follow-up for you, Counselor.
Sure thing.
If you're repealing Obamacare in Washington, are there any elements of it that you would like to retain?
I'm not repealing Obamacare in Washington. I would say that elements can be changed, and that would be the work requirement in this small portion of Medicaid expansion. That part of the rules of all Medicaid was left out and needs to be put back in. Those that are capable of being able to learn how to earn a living, and those that are capable of earning a living, they should have an opportunity to work and therefore not receive subsidies.
All right, next question comes from John Gage.
Thank you for taking my question.
You bet.
Do you agree that policy changes are necessary to reduce climate pollution from fossil fuels along science-based targets for a relatively safe future? And if so, what will you do if elected?
Certainly. There are policies that can be changed. What the problem is, and that would lead to lower carbon emissions, correct?
Yeah.
The problem is that we're really focusing on the United States market, which is not the biggest problem with carbon standards, carbon emissions going up. It is the fact that China is making a coal-fired plant every single week. They're bringing coal-fired plants online, and we in the United States and New Hampshire have been reducing coal-fired plants and causing a problem with supply in our country and driving our energy costs up. So we have to do it in a way where we don't have, from 4 years ago to today, 40% increase in our electric bill. You look at it, kilowatt hour line item, it's from something that was 4 years ago is now 30% higher. We need more take everything and put it on the table. And more of everything has to be used and thought of in a scientific way. When we have a lot of petroleum being refined in Texas, but you can't get it to New England, it's a distribution problem. So to help with energy costs and emissions, we have to concentrate on the world in terms of how emissions are happening, and then concentrate at home to lower energy costs by working on distribution.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Next question comes from Joan Wentworth.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Would you give us your thoughts on the 2020 presidential election, such as whether or not you believe it was stolen, and what attempts to overturn the outcome were appropriate?
Certainly. I just noticed the other day when I retired from the Executive Council, it was on January 6th. It was my last day of office, and that just popped into my head and said, we can't have any violence ever, concerning elections. And here in New Hampshire, they're counting ballots. So the ballots come from Concord, from the Secretary of State's office, and every town has to count those and make sure they said, I gave you 100, I have 100. So we need type of a policy where even other states should take what New Hampshire has done over the years, making us one of the best nations and best states in the nation to assure people that we have clean elections, fair elections, and they're legitimate. Just before I retired from the Executive Council, I certified the vote, and Joe Biden won. And that's what happened here in New Hampshire, and I believe around the country. So what really happened, though, is that the people of America and people of New Hampshire lost at that time, because we have 50% more of a national debt today than 4 years ago. And when you increase 50% of the national debt, you're increasing the amount of dollars in our economy, and that makes a lot of dollars chasing too few goods, and inflation occurs. So when I talk about the election, Joe Biden won the election. When I talk about where we stand now, 4 years later, we're in a place where, because of inflation, housing is a problem, energy is a problem, and immigration is a problem. So I do agree with you. President Biden won.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, Councilor, we've got a viewer question coming in
Yep.
from Beth Downs, who asks, how do you feel about protecting a woman's right to choose?
Well, certainly when the Dobbs decision came down, we had a lot of confusion around our state. What now is the law of the land? So much so that our U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen made sure that she outlined our law that was enacted about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. Very similar to when I was in the State House as a state senator. I voted for a bill pretty much identical to the law we have today. And it was described as we have 6 months opportunity to decide to have an abortion. This really addresses the rape incest issue. It addresses having those operations for C&E, where you have a stillborn and you need to have that operation. It takes care of those issues so that people were assured that the tenets of Roe v. Wade were still in our law. And that's something I did 12 years ago. It finally passed 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. I stand with New Hampshire's law, and as a federal official, not official, but as a congressman, I will not have any actions taking place to take away New Hampshire's right to be able to keep that law.
So when you say in Congress, any actions, how will you vote if there is, say, a more restrictive abortion bill or ban coming forward in Congress?
I will vote no.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor. Next question comes from David Rames.
Yes.
What's your position regarding transgender athlete participation in public school sports?
I am concerned for parents worried about their children, their young girls, having a problem with injuries due to the difference in strength of a boy and the girl. And I think it's appropriate that concern should come to the forefront and have a public debate about it, and immediately stop the process of boys playing in girls' sports. And then have a conversation about it after. It's for the safety of the student, and students have every right to boycott a game if they feel as though it's not going to be good for my health to be in that situation. And parents have every right to object quietly, politely, not in a way that's disruptive or any violence. Just a quiet protest is appropriate. That's my opinions.
Quick follow for you there, Councilor.
Certainly.
Should Title IX be changed at all? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what Congress might do on this issue.
So Title IX, you'd have to explain more.
Okay, so this is the rules around funding for women's sports at the collegiate level and throughout the country. I guess, can Congress be doing more to restrict the access for transgender athletes?
Well, they could. However, When I speak about this situation, it's usually about those that are in the high school age, under 18 years of age. Above 18 years of age, I think there might be a different conversation because we're adults at that point.
Okay. A viewer question coming in now, Councillor, from Jeff Boynton, who asks, what do you plan to cut in order to balance the budget?
Okay, certainly. So I don't know who to talk to. I'll talk to you.
We can talk.
We have $6,000 billion spent every year. That's what our budget is. That's a $6 trillion. So we need to, stop spending $1.5 billion in deficit spending, right? So if you look at what I did as a state senator, we were able to reduce our budget deficit as was 1% of our GDP, and 1.5 trillion is 6% of our GDP. We got to make sure that we take that in little chunks every single year and reduce that by the 1% we were able to do for New Hampshire. I did it. I'm an engineer. I'm a problem solver. That's how we did it. We did it by line item by line item. We looked at what are our needs and what are our wants, and we always take care of our needs. The other way, that's how you reduce the budget and get down to that reduction every single year to get to a balanced budget. The other way is realize that if we keep our economy moving the way it is today, we have a 3% increase of gross domestic product. That's going to account for a budget, amount of money coming into our state, into our country by about $600 billion possible. Because over the last 4 years, believe it or not, we have had $2.5 trillion more money come as revenue than the previous 4 years. If we would just save that out as reduction to our reduction to our budget deficit, we could get there in 2 years. 2.5 million in 4 years is the increase in revenue. That's $600 billion a year. So that could be that in 2 to 3 years we'd have a balanced budget if we just stuck to $6,000 billion spending for the next 3 years.
Okay, next question comes from Kevin Donahue.
Yes.
Councillor, if you were to be elected, what would you do to help the veterans who have been impacted by the service to this country?
By the service to our country,
Yes,
we
sir.
certainly have to make sure that we have restitution if there's any that's needed. And we need to make sure that people know that when you sign up for office, they take this oath of office, right? They not for office of politics, but the office of serving in the armed services. They take this oath of office, and it's the greatest oath of office. And that's, so help me God, you're going to do everything you can to protect our freedoms, support and defend our Constitution. And that means at times you put yourself in harm's way. And sometimes, it happens to the point where people are harmed, and it's due to the even negligence, as it might be referring to. So when we're balancing our budget, we got to make sure that what are our needs of our state, right? Our country. We got to make sure that we keep out those monies that are required to take care of every veteran. And that includes, more services here or allowances for services into our general hospitals and rural hospitals immediately for veterans, and still that the veterans and the administration handles all those costs. Or we invest in a new VA hospital and make sure there's more opportunity for services for our veterans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor, we have another viewer question coming in from Thomas Selling, who asks, how do you plan to solve the nursing and doctor employee shortage crisis in New Hampshire? And of course, this hits a little close to home. Exeter Hospital obviously has been a big subject, and you live not far away.
Sure. So what's really cool is my daughter's a nurse. She married a doctor, and it took them many, many years to get their profession. So we also know that we need more than just those that are being trained up here in New Hampshire and around the country, because there's more demand than that. So let's streamline our immigration policy and make sure that we allow green cards and work visas immediately for those that want to come into our country.
All right, next question comes from Marie Mulroy.
Yes, hi. I was just wondering, is there one question that you've been going around that no one has asked you that you would hope that they would ask?
Oh my goodness. Well, they certainly wouldn't be how old I am. I just turned, I just turned 64 on Saturday.
Okay.
I think people need to know that. They also need to know that I've been here in New Hampshire. My roots go back really, really far. And when I bought my piece of property in Kingston, was really a cool thing. My 10th great-grandfather, I knew he came from Dryby, England, and he came into Hampton Falls, but I didn't know that he actually incorporated the town of Kingston. So he was the first named person on the charter. He was the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. And what I don't want you to know, how about this one, is that when I volunteered to fill a space on the Board of Selectmen in Kingston, they denied me. They said, no, I don't want you, Russell. So here I am thinking that they might be able to let me in, but they didn't. So maybe I answered a couple of your questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You bet.
You have that deep history on the seacoast, obviously, Councilor Prescott.
Yes.
What do you think about offshore wind? Is that an option for the seacoast, or do you think it is more of a blight, not just on the seascape and the landscape, but also potentially for wildlife and obviously the fishery?
Yes, it would be terrible for fishery because what you have is a tremendous cooling is required for those operations. And the cooling is going to be used by seawater. And I've been advised by different readings is that they're going to use chlorine to keep the heat exchangers clean, and that's going to be harmful to the solution of our seas. And it is, short-sighted to say that we should put offshore wind and have to subsidize it to make it happen, and then also have it harm our environment at the same time. I believe it's the wrong thing for New Hampshire.
So if you're there in Congress, you're a vote against any further funding to try and do that?
I'd have to verify all of these things that I've written on and make sure that what I'm saying today is absolute fact, that it is harmful for our environment. And yes, I would vote if that's the case.
On the topic of energy there, obviously Seabrook, there's already a nuclear power plant. Do you think that is an opportunity to do small-scale nuclear there potentially in the future?
I would hope so. I mean, it's one of the things that other nations are using, and we should be ourselves as well.
Okay. And anything else on energy policy in terms of, you were saying there's more supply, a pipeline. Would you want, this is something that a lot of people have said, not in my backyard, should a new natural gas pipeline be coming into New Hampshire?
If we can make sure that it doesn't harm our landscape and it is also safe, yes, we should. We should allow that to happen because it's for the greater good, making sure that we have, we're talking about housing being so unaffordable. Well, part of that is the electric or the energy cost to keep it heated. And the other part is that we have all of this energy being developed in other parts of our country. It needs to have some way of economically coming to New England.
All right, Councilor Prescott, that's the end of Conversation with the Candidate. Thank you so much for joining us today. And that, of course, is the end of our Conversation with the Candidate series. All these candidates that we've been able to talk to over the last few weeks. If you missed any of the episodes, you can find them in the Commitment 2024 section of WMUR.com or our mobile app. You can also compare all the candidates on issues and find information for casting your ballot next week. Thank you to you, Councilor Prescott. Thank you to everyone who came here, and thank you to those watching at home. Have a great morning.